tonight. It's supposed to be getting real cold, and then it's supposed to start raining all next week. So I figured here in about 2 weeks is when I will start selling the calves. Is when I'll start liquidating cattle, and the sumo bros got to go. And these calves right here, these two right here, I got two that look like that. That came from one ranch, and I call them the Teddy Bear Brothers because they got this real thick coat on them. And this calf right here will actually let me walk up to him and uh, just give him a big old hug and everything. He doesn't care. That calf, he'll let me just walk up to him and everything. So I call them the Teddy Bear Brothers. He got a real thick coat, and so but those two they got to go too. And this one, he's about the same size as his brother. He's a little bit smaller, maybe 25 pounds lighter. And his brother hit the scale at what was it? His brother hit the scale at I think it was 715 pounds about a month ago, something like that. It was something like 750, so 715 pounds, something like that. So I figured that these, and if you take a look over here on the right side over here, these this calf right here is about the same. He's about the same size as that one. So I mean, I figure I got about 5 800 pound cattle that need to go to market, and what I figured I would do is I would sell three and then I would sell two. And so or I'll see what I'm gonna do. I'll probably end up selling three and then I'll sell two. What I figured was I would sell I gotta figure it out. The whole thing about me liquidating calves is when I liquidate calves, I'm really looking to reinvest the earnings. I'm looking to, that's the whole point of me, liquidating calves, right? Is to reinvest the earnings. So, you know, if the preconditioning facility is ready to go, if the preconditioning facility has some empty space, and the calves, I still got a few calves over there that need to get vaccinated, and all the calves over there still need a booster, and they got their vaccinations a week ago. So I gotta get everything put together, at the same time, and I'm even considering the possibility of just selling 10 calves next month and buying 20 at the same time. I'm even considering that. Instead of liquidating calves here at the middle of this month, maybe I'll just liquidate them at the middle of next month, and I'll bring all the calves out, over here, and then I will buy 20. I will put 20 new calves at the preconditioning facility at the same time. I'm even considering doing that. That may be a more reasonable thing to do, just because the animals, you know, uh, the whole thing about the preconditioning, and from what I've seen, okay, and the whole thing about preconditioning calves is that, you know, uh, 2 months 2 months is about as fast as I can push the schedule. Okay, I can't do it any faster without causing problems for the animals. Okay, and it's simply because a lot of these calves that come from the sale barn, even when they're 500 pounds, even sometimes even when they're 600 pounds, they haven't even been weaned. Okay, they haven't been weaned, and then you also need to consider the reality that I bring home a majority of my calves at about 200, 250. So these calves are going to get weaned. All right. I will be weaning the calves almost all the time. I am weaning the calves. If the calves have been weaned, they usually have not been weaned for very long. And so, and almost always, these calves, when they start to get sick from the weaning process, they will start getting sick between the 2 to 4 week range. All right, because when they first get home, granted that they did not pick up something from the sale barn. If they picked up something from the sale barn, I mean, for a 200 pound calf, it's almost always guaranteed to be too late. Okay, you probably won't be able to save that calf. If the calf picked up something at the sale barn, and then or you bought a sick calf and the calf is 200 pounds, you're probably not going to be able to save that calf simply because that calf is just so small. It doesn't really have a whole lot to fight with. Okay, and so these calves, when they first get home, when I first bring them home, I give them a shot of antibiotics, and that usually keeps them from getting sick. But the weaning process is very hard on these animals. Okay, weaning is very difficult on the animals, and usually when the animals start to get sick, they will start to get sick at around the 2 to 4 week range, and you really do not want to vaccinate a calf that is even slightly not feeling well. Okay, this is something that I'll put a lot of emphasis on today. You really do not want to give a calf a vaccination if the calf is doing even slightly unwell. You don't want to, okay? It will suppress their immune system. It'll give them a fever. It'll make them not feel real good, okay? A lot of things will happen. And so, I've actually determined that I'm not even going to vaccinate my calves until the second month. And that's why it will take 2 months for the preconditioning. Okay. That's how I run my business. All right. And from what I have seen, that is the best way that from what I have reasonably determined and what I've just done throughout my life and what I've seen, that is the best way to do it, okay? From what I've seen, all right? And that's how I run my business. And at the end of the day, it's my business. I can do whatever the heck I feel like, right? If I want to take 2 months to precondition my calves, then I'm going to take 2 months to precondition my calves. If I want to give all my animals a shot of antibiotics when they first get home and not give them anything else for just give them good food for the first month, then that's what I'm going to do, okay? Antibiotics and good food, all right? And so, when it comes to money, okay? And I've talked about the reality of money. And in all honesty, even if you only, what you're looking for when it comes to money is somebody with a very stable personality and of good character. That's what you're looking for, okay? Because if they are of bad character, if they are poor character, it doesn't matter if they have money, okay? This is one thing that I think it doesn't matter how much money you make. It does not matter, it does not matter how much money you have. It does not matter how much money you make. All right. It really doesn't. And when it comes down to it, you're really looking at the individual themselves because money does not do anything. This is something that a lot of people, you need to understand that, as a conceptual understanding, money does not do anything. It's a piece of paper. It's the person that does things with the money. Okay. So what you're ultimately looking for is somebody with a very just stable personality. They're not excitable, right? You want someone who's just very just they're not excitable, they're not depressive. That's what you're looking for, okay? You're not looking for somebody who's looking for the next big thing. That's not a stable return over a long period of time will make drastic sums of money, okay? And so you're looking for a stable personality. You're looking for somebody who doesn't get upset when things go wrong and who gets excited when things go right. Okay, that's what you're looking for. You're not looking for somebody who's looking for the next big thing and they're just doing excited when things go up and scared when things go down and worried when things go down. That's not good, okay? If you have somebody who is when the prices go down, when things start to go down and they become worried and they become upset, that's not good, okay? That means that they made that they're not making great choices, all right? And so the amount of money that you make and the amount of money you make and the amount of money you have is very irrelevant, okay? Character and personality are very important, in terms of making money, from what I've seen. And when it comes to all this, I've discussed my idea about making money, right? When it comes to making money, you're really looking for a stabilized asset that produces a positive return. All right, that's the name of the game. You're not looking for a better. I mean, if you are if you have a job, and there's nothing wrong with having a job. Okay, there's nothing wrong with having a job. All right, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. If you have a job, or if you're looking for a better job, if you have a job and you're looking for a better job, that's all fine and dandy. I don't suggest everybody become everybody does not need to become an entrepreneur to become wealthy. Okay, you don't need to become an entrepreneur to be wealthy. Okay, you don't need to become an entrepreneur to become well off financially. In all honesty, if you have even a decent job and you got you know, in all honesty, like if you even just put away $2,000 a month for okay, but actually, I'll talk about it in terms of this because a lot of times, like when I say if you put away $2,000 a month, a lot of people think immediately go into thinking about, even when I've even said it like 5 times right now, that the job, okay, okay, when it comes to making money, right? I talk about this all the time, right? The asset itself should be making you the money. That's what you're looking to do. You're looking to have the asset produce money. And so think about it like this. If you are looking to make $2,000 a month on your asset, and your asset is producing you a positive return of 10%, an average return of 10%, right? If you're, if your asset is producing you an average of 10% a year, and you're looking to make $2,000 a month, how much money would you need to have in that asset to make 2 grand a month? 240,000, right? And in all honesty, if you have 240,000 and that asset is making you 10% a month, or 10% a year, excuse me, if it's making you 10% a year, by next year you won't have 240,000, you will have 264,000, right? And the whole thing about making money via an equitable asset is that if the equitable evaluation of the asset goes upwards, that is called an unrealized gain, and you don't pay taxes unless you liquidate, right? And so, and I used, instead of stocks, in terms of my example, I used the idea of land for me, right? In terms of land, like, you really have to, poor people think like poor people, and this is something, like, when I talk about this stuff, I'm not bashing anybody. I'm not being malicious about it. I'm not, I'm not being, whatever, I'm not looking to whatever about it. I'm not being a malicious person, but I'm not looking to be a malicious person. I'm not a malicious person. I'm not saying this because I get a kick out of it. I don't think it's funny. A lot of people are effectively just completely untapped potential. And in all honesty, the amount of money, the amount of money is an irrelevant topic. Okay, it really doesn't matter. The amount of money is irrelevant. All right, how much money you make and how much money you have, these things are all irrelevant. You could have $10 billion and you could just kind of be whatever about it, and then you could lose everything, right? I mean, it happens all the time, right? You could have $400 or $500 million in the bank, and you could lose it all. All right. I mean, you could have $1,000, and you could just give up all hope and never ever try again for the rest of your life, right? I mean, there are, effectively, the amount of money is irrelevant. It doesn't matter how much you make. It doesn't matter how much you have. All right. If I had $1,000, I could turn that $1,000 into 50,000 or 100, somewhere between 50 and $100,000 within 1 year with a 100% guarantee. I could do it. All right. That's the thing about me. All right. And I would 100% guarantee that I could turn 1,000 into 50,000 to $100,000 in 1 year with a 100% guarantee. And if you're poor, you probably think like a poor person. I can almost guarantee it. I'm not talking about being broke. All right, you have to start thinking about making a return on an asset. If you do not make a return on an asset, there is practically, from what I have seen, making money is not like winning the lottery. All right, it's not like you wake up one day with $1 billion. That's not how it happens. Chances are, you started, a lot of, like Warren Buffett effectively started with nothing. All right. I mean, this was a guy just, he, I mean, and you can't say he started with nothing, but when he was like 11 or something, he was selling newspapers and making I don't know, a few pennies here and there, and and stuff like that, and that's how he got started, right? I mean, and it's like, me, I didn't make any money. This is actually my fourth year in the cattle business. I was actually thinking about it. The year's already almost over. This is actually my fourth year in the cattle business. And here's the thing. I didn't, I've already been, in terms of like the total amount of time that I've spent working on learning how to do all this stuff, right? And learning how to do all this stuff. I've been doing this for almost 16 years now. I actually, if I'm 34, I started when I was 18, and I'm 34. I've been doing this for almost 16 years now, and I've been in the cattle business for 4 years. I didn't start making any money farming until about 2 years ago. That's what happened with me. All right, God knows it. I'm being completely honest about it. All right, I didn't start making any money until about 2 years ago. My first year in the cattle business. I mean, my first year in the cattle business, that entire first year, calves were like $350 a pound. All right, hay was like a $125. Calves were like $350. Excuse me, not a pound. Calves were selling for $350. Feeder cattle were selling for like $1,000 to $1,200. Hay was $125 a bale. During the winter time, I went and I had to drive like 2 hours, not 2 hours, an hour there and an hour back to go and buy some corn stalk bales for $60 a bale, and urea was like $1,000 a ton. That's when I started in the cattle business, and even when I started like that, I was still able to break even just by keeping track of my finances, right? I talk about the idea of keeping track of the finances. You have to keep track of your finances. If you don't keep track of your finances, chances are you're not going to do very well, all right? You have to keep track of your finances, and that's when I started, and that was almost about 4 years ago. Something like 3.5, 4 years ago, something like that now. And so, when it comes to making money, you have to think about making a positive return on your capital. And in terms of the way that I think, I always invest my money first. All right. When I have money, the very first, like even right now, when I was discussing the idea of liquidating cattle, the only reason that I would liquidate my animals is to reinvest the money to expand the size of my herd. I'm not going to scrape the money off of my business and go and do something else with it, right? I'm not going to go and, whatever with the money, right? I'm going to put the money back into my business. And the whole idea of a compounding effect, me in the cattle business, farming is effectively a 100% skill based business. All right. A farmer who is decently good, maybe putting on 2 pounds a day. A farmer who is decently good, maybe running whatever, maybe putting on about 2 pounds a day, and the cost of gains maybe about $75 a month. Right, farming is a a farmer that's not very good, maybe putting on 1 to 1.5 pounds a day, and and et cetera, and they're actually losing money technically when you think about it because their animals are not conditioning properly, and the longer that they hold on to their animals for, if you have a 700-pound animal, if you have a 500, 700, 800-pound animal, and that animal's putting on 1.5 pounds a day, that animal's slowly becoming emaciated. Okay, that animal needs to put on weight. You need to put on at least 2 pounds a day. 1.5 pounds a day, the animal may not becoming emaciated, but if you're under 1.5 pounds a day, your animal's slowly becoming emaciated, and the longer that you hold on to that animal, the you'll lose money. All right, and 2 pounds a day is not difficult to achieve. If you just fertilize your grass a little bit and give them a little bit of grain, you can get to 2 pounds no problem. And me, I put on about 3 pounds a day on my cattle. Okay, I put on about 3 pounds, and to conceptually understand the big benefit of putting on 3 pounds instead of two is that if you have a farmer that's putting on 2 pounds a day and a farmer that is putting on 3 pounds a day, the farmer that is putting on 3 pounds a day will make 50% more money than the farmer that is putting on 2 pounds a day, and that 50% will compound over a long, that 50% will compound. All right, because the nature of the commodity market is that the animal, the commodity is worth its weight in gold. All right, so the 50% will compound. All right, and so my cost of gains here about next week when it starts to rain. I will there's a portion of grass over there that the calves really like to eat, and I'll go and I'll fertilize that grass, and my cost of gains will be something like $25 a month, and I'll be putting per calf, and I'll be putting on 3 pounds a day with that money. All right, it might not, I got a, yeah, it'll be about $25 a month per animal, something like that. It'll be about $25 a month per animal, and with that money, I will put on about 3 pounds a day on each animal. All right, and so that's what my results look like. All right, and so with all this, And the whole idea of compounding and making money with assets. And I think that a lot of people are going to get caught off guard. A lot of people are going to get caught off guard by the sheer amount of money that I make. Like me right now, I make about, actually, instead of talking about it in terms of money, let's talk about it in terms of cattle. Right now, I sell about 5 calves a month. Here by about March, in about 5 months, maybe 2 more months, maybe somewhere between 5 and 7 months, March, April, May, something like that. It doesn't matter to me. All right. This is the direction that I'm going, and it just is what it is. I'm not concerned about it. Either which way, I'm freaking rich the entire time. If I legitimately need more money, if I like need a couple $1,000s or whatever, then I'll just sell one of my calves. I'm not in any kind of monetary crunch. Why would I concern myself with money? If I get there in 5 months, so be it. If I get there in 7 months, so be it. I don't care. All right. But this is the direction that I'm going, and I guarantee you that I'm gonna make it. Guarantee it. All right, don't be a doofus. All right, I 100% guarantee that I will make it. All right, it might take me 7 months, but what does it matter? If it takes me 5 months, if it takes me 7 months, what's it doesn't matter. It doesn't. It's what's the difference, right? It's the same thing. Either which way, I'm gonna be freaking rich the entire time. What does it matter? If I legitimately need a couple $1,000s, I can just sell one of my animals. All right. So let's think about this in terms of calves. Instead of money, let's talk about it in terms of cattle. And I 100% guarantee that I'm going to make it. All right. So right now I'm selling about 5 cattle a month. Okay. I sell about 5 cattle a month right now. Here in about 5 months, 5, 7 months, something like that, I'll actually be selling 10. So think about it for yourself, right? The big idea with money is to understand that there are things that are worth money that are not money, right? You have to make this connection. If you don't make this connection, you will never be financially well off. I guarantee it. Granted, one of you might end up winning the lottery, and that may be whatever for you. But even then, if you don't pick up good habits, even if you win the lottery, you're just gonna lose everything. All right, what does it matter? I actually know a lady. I actually know a lady whose cousin won I think it was $250,000, and won $250,000. It was something like $250,000. She won $250,000 in the lottery. She bought herself a car, and she bought herself a bunch of crack cocaine, and the dealer now has her car. I'm being completely honest about it, 100% complete honest truth. God knows it. I'm telling the truth. I know a lady whose cousin won the lottery and won something like $250,000 on that lottery. She bought herself a car, bought a bunch of crack cocaine, and now her dealer has her car, driving around in her brand new car. I'm serious about it. All right. If you don't pick up good habits, it doesn't matter how much you could. It doesn't even matter. I mean, because if you think about what $250,000 is, if you made a 10% return on $250,000, that's an extra $2,000 a month for you, right? That's an extra $2,000 a month that you just get to have, right? That is legitimately the difference between, for a majority of people, $2,000 a month is all it takes. Is what it takes, not all it takes. Is what it takes for you to move yourself up financially in the world, legitimately. All right. Like, if you're going to take your finances into your own hands and you are going to put yourself in a good financial situation, $2,000 a month is effectively what it takes for anybody to effectively move themselves up in the world. All right. And if your investment is making you $2,000 a month and you're putting another $2,000 a month into it, your investment is making you $4,000 a month. Right. That's very good. All right. Your investment is going up in value by $4,000 a month. Right. That's almost 50 grand a year, right? And it's compounding on itself. So, and the whole idea, and I think a lot of you are probably in, and it doesn't. The whole thing about money is I'm the one. I actually have the money. This is not my opinion. Nobody cares about an opinion. I actually have the money. All right, I actually have the money. I actually do well for myself. Nobody cares about an opinion. If you have a bunch of if you have a bunch of opinions, I don't know what you want me to say about it. It's like, oh my god, what do you want me to say about it? That's cute. Keep your BS to yourself. Nobody cares. I actually have the money. And what are you going to do about it, right? I'm the one who made the money. I'm the one who did well for myself. I actually put in the effort and I actually went and did it, right? So that means something. I'm not giving you my opinion. I'm the one with the money. I actually make the money. If I had nothing, I could redo everything in 30 seconds. I don't care if you died. All right? So let's talk about this in terms of calves. Right now, I'm selling about 5 calves a month. There's a very legitimate possibility that I end up liquidating 10 animals a month by about March to May, something like that. I'll start liquidating 10. And in all honesty, it'll probably be 10, and then it'll be like 11, and then 12, and then 14, and et cetera, et cetera. The number of calves that I am liquidating on a monthly basis will actually move upwards, because my whole thing about my business and everything is that almost like 93% of the money that I make effectively, it's actually more than 93 because I leverage against it. About 175% of the money that I make, my income, I invest about 175% of my income into my business every year. All right. Do I suggest that you do this? It's a free country, but if you went out and you did it, and you would find out very quickly that how hard the cattle business is. The cattle business is not a free lunch. All right, the cattle business is not some easy business. All right, and if you suck, you're not going to make any money. Chances are you're not going to get a job as a cattleman. You're either going to have to run your own cattle ranch, or you're not going to be working on a cattle ranch. Chances are, all right. So I mean, I think a lot of people are going to get caught off guard by the amount of money that I make. I think when I talk about the compounding effect, and when you start compounding an investment, at a certain point that investment starts to go vertical. And when I take a look at my balance sheet and I take a look at what I got going on, I am telling you that my balance sheet is set to go vertical within about 5 months, 7 months, and I 100% guarantee it, granted that I don't like get hit by a tornado, because the what granted that I don't like get hit by a tornado or anything like that, you know uh because the whole thing is like me. The cattle business is effectively my entire life. This is also what I mean by personality and character. I don't do drugs. I don't go on magical journeys. I don't The cattle business is effectively my entire life. And also, when you just take a look at what I'm doing, you need to understand that I'm the one who actually made the money. Money's not an opinion. I actually make the money. Nobody cares about an opinion. All right, it's like if you got, you can whatever. I mean, I'm the one with the money. All right, so it just is what it. I'm not saying money's everything. Money's not everything. But when it comes down to it, I actually did so well in the cattle business that I effectively outperformed the entire world economy. I actually did it. All right. I do very well for myself. If I legitimately need money, I can just sell a couple of my animals. What does it matter? I am compounding, when I take a look at what I got going on, my balance sheet is set to go vertical. Granted that I do not get hit by a tornado or anything like that, the amount of money that I make will actually start to skyrocket in the next 5 to 7 months. Skyrocket, like legitimately go from 10,000 to 100,000 in like 1 year. 10,000 a month to $100,000 a month, like within 365 days. I'm being completely serious about it. All right, and if you have a difficult time understanding this in terms of money, right now I'm selling 5 cattle a month. Here within about here within about 5 or 7 months, I'll be selling about 10, and I will be maybe even 12 or 14, and I will re-leverage myself. All right, so within about by the end of next year, by this time next year, I will be making over $100,000 a month, over 100 grand. And my whole thing about assets and why you should hold assets, right? And something like the S&P 500, I don't know what the loan conditions for an S&P 500 is. I do know that for land, banks love lending for real estate, and banks love lending against real estate. Banks absolutely love it, okay? Real estate banks will give you like 30-year loans for land, 40-year loans. They'll give you a 20 years interest only. They'll give you all types of wonderful loans for land. All right. And, my whole thing about, and I use this as an example, is like if you have whatever, right? If you have a piece of land, you know, you can take a loan against it. All right. If you have, I'm not entirely sure about taking loans against stocks because I don't, but, I'll talk about land. I'll talk about land as my example. So let's say I have a piece of land, right? And I have this piece of land, and the land is worth whatever. The land is worth $500,000, and this land that I have, the $500,000 land that I have, is making me let's say it's 50 acres, and let's say that it's making me $12,000 a month. So I have a $500,000 acre or a $500,000 piece of land, and it's 50 acres, and on this 50-acre property, I'm making myself about $12,000 a month. So I go to the bank and I say, "Hey, banker, give me a loan against my land." And they say, "Well, you have a $500,000 piece of land, so we'll give you a loan for 400,000. We'll give you a loan for 80% of it, and we'll give you an interest only loan for the first 20 years, right? And we'll do it at whatever. We'll do it at 7%." So I say, okay, so 400,000 at 7% is how much money? That's $28,000 a year, right? That's 28,000. So effectively, let's just say it's 2,400, right? Something like that, $2,400 a month. If it's $2,400 a month and the land itself is producing 10,000, 11,000, I can just take the $2,400 out of the $10,000 that I make and just pay the bank back, take that $400,000 and invest it into something that will make me more money. Right? That's the whole thing. Like, that's the whole thing. It's like, if you have an asset, and let's talk about this whatever. It doesn't matter what your asset evaluation is. It doesn't matter. All right. And even if I took my $400,000 loan and bought myself a Lamborghini with $250,000 of it doesn't matter, right? I mean, I could still pay for the Lamborghini and I would still have like $8,500 a month left over, right? And this is the whole thing. It's like, me, I could even if I went and bought four Lamborghinis right now and I put those four Lamborghinis, if I in all honesty, I'm gonna just be honest about it. I'm not being a doofus about it. I'm not being a prick about it. I'm not being a malicious person about it. If I'm just going to say 1 million just to make it a conservative estimate. If I put $1 million in a hole right now and I lit that money on fire, it wouldn't matter to me financially. I'm gonna just be honest about it. I'm not being a prick about it. I'm not being a dick about it. I'm not being a jerk about it. I'm not being a doofus. I'm not like making it up. I'm just being completely serious about it. If I put $1 million in a hole right now and I lit that money on fire, it wouldn't do anything to me financially. This is the thing that, it's a lot of people probably don't ever think about this stuff. Like the things that I talk about, a lot of people probably don't ever think about. If you have an asset that is equitable and it's producing you a positive return, and you take a loan against that asset, and the loan against your asset costs less money than the amount of money that your asset produces, you can float the debt. You can pay off the debt with the return from the asset without touching the equitable evaluation of the asset. I don't have to sell my land to access the $500,000. If I have a $500,000 property and I go to the bank and I take a loan for 400 grand, and the bank tells me we'll give you a loan for 400,000, will give you a loan for 400,000 and it's going to be interest only for 20 years and it's 7% interest. That's $28,000 a year. If it's $28,000 a year, let's just say it's, whatever, $2,500 a month, something like that. 2,400. If it's 2,400 and my property is making me 10,400, I can pay the bank back for that $250,000 loan and I would still have $8,000 left over. All right, I would still have $8,000 a month left over. This is how you utilize capital without, ever touching the principal, without ever touching the equitable, sum of the asset. All right, and this is something that most people probably never even consider. If you have an asset, if you have an asset that is producing you a return, my whole thing is land. Land is something that I know that, in terms of like the lending standards, in terms of like taking a loan for land, I don't know it very well, but it's one of the loans that I actually utilize very frequently. Okay, it's one of the loans that I look into very frequently. Okay, in terms of like the loans that I use, I don't ever even consider the idea of taking loans against stocks. I don't consider it. I don't think about it. I don't know what the lending standards are. I've never asked a banker about it. In terms of land, I've asked multiple bankers about multiple properties, and this is the information that they gave me. All right. So this is accurate information. Okay. This is a good information. Is that like when you have a piece of land, and if it's worth $500,000 and you have that piece of land and you go to the bank and they tell you that they'll give you a loan for 80% of it, they'll give you a loan for 400 grand. And if you take that loan for 400 grand and you use a $250,000 of it, and that $250,000, let's say that you use all 400,000 of it. If you used all $400,000, then and they were saying that you had to pay 7% interest, you would be paying $28,000 a year. All right. So you wouldn't even have to sell the property. I would not even have to sell the property to access the money. I could just leave a couple of cattle on it or whatever. Just keep it making the $10,000, and I could just take the $400,000 and go invest it somewhere else. All right. That's the big benefit of having equitable assets. They're worth money, and you don't have to sell them to access the money. And if they produce you a positive return, you can use the positive return from the asset to float the debt that you took against the asset.